Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com. In this video we're going to take a look at the not-null assertion operator in Kotlin. This is actually pretty straightforward. This operator allows you to access a property or method of a nullable value as if it wasn't nullable. Let's take a look at an example. I'll create an integer value, so of type int, and I'll specify that this variable is nullable. It is something that we can set to null. Then let's set it equal to null. Now let's try to call a method of that value. So I'll do print line, and in there we'll do value.toFloat to convert it to a floating point value. As we've seen, Kotlin will give me an error here. It won't compile the program because we've got a nullable value which could be null, and in fact in this case is null, and we can't then just access properties and methods as though that value isn't null. We've already seen 3 different ways to deal with this problem. We could check with an if this value is null and only call toFloat if it isn't null. We could use the safe call operator to ensure that the toFloat method is not accessed if value is null. And we could use the else operator to return something else from this expression if value is null. So for example, I could change this using safe call to question mark dot, and then with the else operator I could even supply a value for the case where the value is actually null. Now when I run this we get 0, but if I change this to, for example, 7 and I run that, we get 7.0. Now in this case I can very well see that the value, although it is nullable, is not actually null. So we can override Kotlin's default behavior using the not-null assertion operator. Let's get rid of the else operator, get rid of the safe call operator, and now immediately after value I'm going to write 2 exclamation marks. This is the not-null assertion operator, and it says to Kotlin, ignore the fact that this is potentially null. I'm sure it definitely isn't null, so go ahead and call toFloat. Let's run this, and you can see we get 7.0 as before. But what if the value is actually null? So here I'm still overriding Kotlin's default behavior using this not-null assertion operator. I'm saying, look, just go ahead and treat this value as though it's definitely not null, which unfortunately it now is. So when I run this, we get something that Java developers will be extremely familiar with, which is a null pointer exception. One good thing you can say about null pointer exceptions is that at least it's usually pretty easy to fix them. The null pointer exception means you've tried to access a property or method of a value that's actually null. And if I click on the first hyperlinked line in the error here, it will take me to the line where the problem occurs. So potentially the not-null assertion operator could be useful in a circumstance where you've got a nullable value and you're absolutely sure it's not null, and you want to just stop Kotlin complaining that you've tried to access a field or property of a nullable value without checking for null. However, I would suggest avoiding it whenever possible, because if you're wrong and the value is in fact null, this is going to lead to exactly the problem that safe call is supposed to avoid. That's it for this video. Until next time, happy coding.